Accessing agent files. Brian Sovryn. Early 21st century anarchist. Creator and host of the podcast Sovryn Tech. By the year 2021, the show would be instrumental in the downfall of various conservative ideologies in the government, helping usher in an incredible time.
Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the Golden Stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn.
The man of tomorrow is here, the Golden Stallion, ready for another special of Sovryn Tech. And this one is a highly requested special of the show. A lot of people asked for an update of this, and maybe I'll end up, what this special's about, maybe I'll end up doing it maybe once a year. Every year, and we'll just keep updating it, because it's definitely a platform that is going through changes all the time. And Google updates it once a year themselves, sometimes drastically, sometimes not. And what we're talking about, of course, is Android, the most popular operating system on the planet today. But what we're going to do in this special is we're going to bend Android to our will. We're going to make it get rid of the Google, or all kinds of things we're going to do with this. This is Dark Android 2, and I did a what I call Dark Android, a special about, well, I don't know if it was a year ago, but it was quite a few months back in any case. And it was really popular. A lot of people really enjoyed, hearing it, liked the direction that we went with it. And so we're going to continue that trend right now. And, to speak of direction, what is the overarching goal of what I'm about to describe to you? Well, last time that we did Dark Android, this would be Dark Android 1, I guess, because there will probably be a Dark Android 3 and a Dark Android 4. Last time, there was points where I had to cave, where I had to say, okay, you need what this bit of business that's in the Play Store. You're going to have to use that. I know we'd much rather use everything within F-Droid, but we're going to have to use this. And this time around, I actually, the setup that I laid out for Android, all the apps and everything that you're going to put in, you don't need Google for a single lick of it. Okay, so this is going to be, almost totally open source. There will be perhaps, I guess I'll say it's 99% open source, because I don't know a couple of the apps, I'm not entirely certain that they fall under an open source license of any shape or size. So, but again, the goal of this one, and I want you to be able with this, to tailor it to your own needs, because I am going full paranoid I'm not going full paranoid, but with this special, with this Android setup, I am setting it up full paranoid, as in, I don't want Google tracking me. I don't want Facebook tracking me. I don't want any of these people, necessarily tracking me. I don't want any apps that could be a security problem being on there. I want to know that this shit is locked down. So understand that what I'm about to describe may not necessarily be for everyone, but it is I guess you could say it is the bottom floor of where you would want to build off of. Okay, as far as having, a very secure system. So let's start it out. The first thing first is hardware and operating system. Now we're talking about Android, but Android actually has, distributions, much like Linux has alternatives, to just good old fashioned Linux, like Slackware. You have Ubuntu, you have Fedora, you have Gentoo, you have Triskel, a whole slew of things. And Android has that as well, and certainly not as many as Linux does. And at the core, of course, Android is essentially Linux. But Android has a couple of them, and perhaps the most popular is CyanogenMod. And if you can, on the hardware that we're about to describe, if you can get CyanogenMod put on there, you're in much better shape. And the reason that is that a lot of these, now, if you can root a device, you can do a whole slew of things. And one of the things that you'd want to do with this setup is to root your device. And, because the thing is you can't, in regular Android, unless you get, some tablet, and that's fine if you wanted to get one of these, but like there's companies like Arcos and others that will sell tablets, sometimes in the sub $100 range, that don't have the Play Store on them. And if that's the case, then you're fine, as long as you don't have that Play Store and whatever else, because the Play Store comes with a whole lot of stuff pre-installed. It comes with Gmail, comes with Google+, things that you don't want. If you want to, again, this is dark Android. This is secure Android. So we're eliminating the Play Store. Now, like I said, you can build on this, what I'm going to be describing in this special, in any way you want. If you want the Play Store, then put on the Play Store. That's fine. Just understand, like we talked about in last week's episode about software minimalism, the more you add on, the less secure your system becomes. And, Google is certainly a problem. Okay, so but you can get Android de-Googled. Be it either, getting a version of Android, what they call like AOSP, that would be like on those Arcos tablets that I described, or using CyanogenMod. There's another one called Replicant, which is an offshoot of Android. And Replicant is actually the best of the bunch. It's totally open source, but because it's totally open source, this is going to be ironic. A lot of times you can't get open source Wi-Fi drivers. For a lot of hardware that could work on. And so you kind of, you have to make a deal with the devil. So, that's why I say it's not none of this can be 100% open source as yet. But Replicant is another one that one could look at. But let's talk about hardware. What hardware should one use? And again, if you're wanting to be secure, now a lot of this you could implement on your smartphone. All of it could be implemented on your smartphone, even the CyanogenMod stuff. Okay, but again, if we're talking full paranoid, as I talked about in Dark Android 1, this is not a new statement by me, but the most secure device you can use is a tablet for a multitude of reasons. Okay. First off, you don't have you don't have a SIM card in it, because as I've said often on Sovryn Tech, if something has a SIM card in it, you do not have 100% control of it, because whoever has access to that SIM card, be it Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, whatever, could just shut off your device, completely without your permission. So SIM cards are a no-no in this whole situation. All right. Now, the other advantages to a tablet, and this is kind of changing with phones, or I guess some phones have multiple users that you can do. One of the easiest secure things, particularly when you're crossing borders, to other countries, is that, or, even just in other situations, you can on Android tablets or CyanogenMod, I'll use the term interchangeably. You can actually change on a tablet the user. And so you could encrypt one user. Well, you can encrypt all the users, but you can have it so that, when someone took a good quick cursory look at your tablet, none of what you actually have on it is there, and all they'll see is the one user on it. So you can switch profiles, which gives you another layer of security. Not unlike a lot of really good security software for operating systems like Windows and others, where it sets up a junk login, and then you can just get to your real one. Okay, so that's an advantage there. And the other thing to consider is that I think a lot of people, and I've talked about this a lot with tablets. Again, we're saying you're not going to have a SIM card. So holy shit, how am I going to receive, how am I going to communicate with people? How am I going to receive data? Well, first off, a lot of the software we're going to talk about in this special works completely offline if necessary. And it does it well at that. Okay. But the second point is that, when you do go to other countries than the U.S., or if you are in a major metropolitan area in the U.S., often Wi-Fi is far more ubiquitous. It's everywhere, to where, you could have that constant communication, because a lot of other countries have completely skipped a lot of the hardline, internet infrastructure, and they have set up things totally wireless. And you can make access to a lot of that. I know particularly in Japan, there's seemingly Wi-Fi everywhere, and so lots of places where you could really get away with just having a Wi-Fi connection. And most people within said countries do just get away with there being, relatively free Wi-Fi. So keep that in mind. But again, that was another part of the goal here. We're talking about not having, persistent internet connection. And so, can what I list off work without it? And yes, all of this can work without, or more or less work without an internet connection. So now, but we talked about the software and the fact that we want to use a tablet. We've laid that out. Again, we're full paranoid here. Keep that in mind, but adapt this in any way that you want with the hardware that you already have or with your own comfort levels. Okay. So what tablets are good ones to get? Well, the cream of the crop would seem to be the 2013 version of the Nexus 7. And that's, Wi-Fi only, and preferably with the 32 gigabyte of storage, because the Nexus 7, its major flaw is that it doesn't have a micro SD card slot. And that does suck that it doesn't. But otherwise, the Nexus 7 is a great device. It has really good specs. It has the Tegra 4, right? I think it has the Tegra 4 chip in it. So a processor with plenty of balls, plenty of power. There are other ones that you could go for. If you went with something from Sony, you're going to have other advantages, such as Sony's tablets are all waterproof and dustproof, so you have a pretty tough machine on your hands there. And you could also go with some of Samsung's Galaxy Note tabs. Any one of those, might do you very well, and those have the advantages, along with the Sony, of having micro SD card expansion. And but the reason that I recommend the Nexus 7 so much, the 2013 Nexus 7, and the Nexus 9 would probably be a similar case if you wanted to go with the Nexus 9. I just think it's way too expensive. It's a nice piece of machinery, but very expensive. But the nice thing about the Nexus 7 is that it has a very strong, we're talking about CyanogenMod. It has a really, strong community around it. All the Nexus devices do. And so you're probably going to get the latest updates of CyanogenMod, very, very easily and very well if you go with a Nexus device. So that could be true for the Nexus 9 as well. Just the Nexus 7 you really get for a very, very good price. Wi-Fi 32 gig or 16 gig works for you, then I guess that works for you. But I recommend going all the way, because in my mind, part of this is you going all Jack Reacher. You're like out of a Lee Child novel, and this is like your only device. This is your anonymity, and that's something to keep in mind too. Is that one of the very first things you can do to secure down a device like this, a tablet, an anonymous use tablet, is to, as I say often, when you're going on tour or when you're, doing anything that may be of conventionally questionable means, you want to, in your mind, you want to pretend you're somebody else. And you want to be using different identities and all of that, and you want to keep in that mindset. So a tablet certainly works very well and very inexpensively to those ends and to those goals. Okay. So those are the devices I'd recommend as far as tablets go. There's another tablet. It hasn't come out yet, but this one might be a really good one to get your hands on. And that is the Nokia N1. And this, it's a rebranding. This is a new N1. The N1 name's been used before. And the N1 has a great, I think the specs are pretty much comparable to the Nexus 9, but the price point, as I understand it, will be significantly lower. So that's another one to look out for. But by and large, I recommend the 2013 Nexus 7 as far as the hardware you want to do this with. And I'm not the only one that recommends this. The Tor project kind of has a slightly similar layout to what I'm describing. It doesn't go as far as what I'm going to be telling you about, but I mean, they go all the way to where they start cutting, at the Tor project, they're using a Nexus 7 as well for their layout of this, but they're cutting the microphone off, which, you can do that if you want. They went even more paranoid than I did, amazingly. And so, not on software. On software, I think I've got them bested, but on hardware, they went even further. So those are things to, consider as well. And that's something too, if you're concerned about privacy, the Nexus 7 also has a really nice flat layout that lets you very easily put a sticker over the video cameras, over the cameras on the device. So there's an advantage, certainly to that as well. And as to where like Samsung's devices are feel kind of different, and it may not be so easy to keep an easily removable sticker like the ones from EFF.org, over the camera on it without it falling off. So that lays out the hardware pretty well, of what we have in mind here. And I hope that you understand, kind of the mindset that, that I'm coming from, that I'm trying to deliver with how one would use this device. But again, adapt it to your own needs, as you see fit. So let's get into the software. Okay. We've talked about our underlying operating system. We are talking about a completely de-Googled. It does not have the Play Store. And with the Play Store, comes again, pre-installed apps. You have Gmail, you have Google+, you have a whole shit ton of others. We don't want any of that. And so we're talking about a tablet that does not have it. So the very first piece of software that we need to have is some kind of app repository. What exactly are we going to use? If we're not using the Play Store, are we going to Amazon? No, that's worse. So what are we going to put on there? And the one is F-Droid, and links for some of this will be in the show notes. I can't really give you links for all of it because everything, all the software that we're putting in there is in the F-Droid store, and I can't get links for it in F-Droid like you can with the Google Play Store, where it's available online and I can, put in hot links or whatever. That's not possible for me to do. So you're going to have to look these things up mainly by name, but the link for the F-Droid store to get your hands on that is in the show notes. And so F-Droid this is an alternative, app repository that is, everything in it is open source. That's the requirement. Okay. Now, this is a bit of a Wild West, admittedly, with what's available, because not all of it has been checked out. It does not go through as rigorous testing, perhaps, or security as things that end up on the Play Store do. There's really not a whole lot of stipulations for what can get uploaded onto F-Droid. And that's the importance of, I feel of me doing this special is I am going to tell you the apps I am telling you about have been tested by me as well as by other people, and that they are not doing any kind of funny business in the background. Might they do some kind of funny business in the future? That is the danger of, going through, a repository like F-Droid. Okay. Or a store, whatever you want to call it. That's the other thing too, is that nothing in the App Store that you download costs money. Now, there may be, in some of them, there might be a degree of in-app purchases that you could, get access to, but by and large, it's all completely free. So everything we're talking about here is only going to cost you the price of the tablet. Okay. And so let's go into, we've got the F-Droid store, and it's a really well done. They have a great system set up there. The F-Droid works really, really well. It automatically updates, or it tells you about updates. It automatically updates itself very well. Years ago when I first talked, it was one of the very first thing I talked about on Sovryn Tech was the F-Droid store. It's come a long way. Even then it was fine, but now, it's really upped its game. It gives you way more information about whatever apps you're looking at than the Play Store does, or really any other app repository I've seen. So good stuff. You're going to love the F-Droid store. It's really, really nicely set up. And so you want to get that installed, and that can get done, very, very simply. You go to the website, you install it, and, you hit the APK. That's something, not that I can describe how this gets done here, but of course, on your device, to be able to make use of F-Droid, you have to, in your settings on your Android device, you have to turn on, third party, the ability to use third-party applications that aren't a part of the Play Store. Now, that generally isn't a problem if you've gotten a device that, or, like if you're loaded with CyanogenMod or whatever, where, you're not, where it's already running that way, where it knows it's not going to grab stuff from the Play Store in the first place. So you wouldn't have to change it then, but on the bulk of devices, you do have to turn that setting on, and easy enough to find out how to do that. So we have the F-Droid store, and I'm not going to go down these apps in any particular, order of importance. There's really so many to get through. We just want to get through them. But I think one of the first things that people will want is maps. This was actually, map software was really one of the first things and one of the first proof of concepts of the importance of smart mobile devices. And it was an afterthought. The very famous story that, maps on the iPhone back in 2007 was really an afterthought. Just Steve Jobs wanted something that showed him using the touch interface. And it ended up, somebody said, okay, well, we'll put a map program on there and that'll work. And then it ended up being the most popular thing that smartphones generally get used for, or mobile devices gets used for. And it's true, it is. And so there's great options out there for maps beyond Google Maps. There really, really are. But the one that you're going to want to get your hands on, again, all of this is available in the F-Droid store. It's OsmAnd, or OsmAnd, and the OSM stands for OpenStreetMaps. And so even the mapping system that you're using is open source, which is great. Again, totally available for free in the F-Droid store. None of what we're talking about here requires the Play Store. So keep that in mind. So, and this is, the map software actually makes really the best case for why you want as much storage on your tablet as you can get, why you'd want the 32 gig as compared to the 16 gig. Because with OsmAnd, you could download offline, all pretty much a map for the entire planet. Okay. And that's really handy to have. So you want to, why not do that? Especially if you're living a more or less anonymous life, you're probably going to end up traveling the world pretty good. So it's handy to have. And so that's, again, great case for why you want so much storage, because I have a device where I have a complete map of the world on it. And I think it ends up taking around 8 gigabytes on its own. And that's using OpenStreetMaps at that. And so, it's something to consider as far as that goes. But OsmAnd it does a great job, has a lot of features. That's one where I think that to some degree within the app itself, you can purchase some additional features. So that's something to look for. But, particularly if you're in the US, it'll just work right out of the gate. So that's maps for you. The next thing, why don't we talk about search? Okay, we've got the maps down and, all open source. Let's talk about search. What's the best thing for search? Well, easily DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo will give you all of the features that Google search other than, of course, Google Now, which you don't want. You don't want your device listening to you all the time. DuckDuckGo will give you all of the features that you generally get with Google search on an Android device. It'll give you the search bar. It'll, all those kinds of things. And equally, the interesting thing is that it will also, and we're going to talk about using Tor on the device here in a bit, but DuckDuckGo will search through Tor. It can work through Tor. And it's a really nice, the DuckDuckGo app for Android is a really nice sandbox. And what I mean by that when I say sandbox is that it's all enclosed. In fact, what you search, the DuckDuckGo app has its own browser built into it. And so you can just, click on what you're searching and it will stay within the DuckDuckGo system. It's very secure. You can choose to open whatever you're looking at in an external browser. But if you want to be extra cautious, you can do it right within DuckDuckGo itself. It has its own built-in web browser. And it has a lot of nice features. It doesn't have Google Now functionality in that it has cards show up, but it does give you a lot of news. There's a lot of cool features that I could spend a whole episode talking about that the DuckDuckGo app allows for. That's an easy one. You want that. I use that, on my smartphone. I've eliminated Google search on it and I use DuckDuckGo pretty much exclusively. Is it as good an algorithm as Google? No, nothing is. There's definitely a trade-off here, but it does the job. I haven't really had the situation yet where I'm like, oh, fuck, I can't find this, and I've had to go run off to Google or something. DuckDuckGo really does it. I use DuckDuckGo pretty much exclusively, on any device that I have, not just on mobile devices, but on, my big computers as well. I use DuckDuckGo all the time. So that's a great one to have your hands on. But let's get into the next big one. And so we're getting the big ones out of the way here first. And the next big one is certainly the web browser. And then after the web browser, we'll get into the fact that, yes, you are able to have a whole ton of fun on this anonymous Android device, on this dark Android device. But the web browser is FireFox. Now, this is something that, again, I recommend, like DuckDuckGo, I recommend using anyway, whether you're going for having a very anonymous and secure device to just a device that's your daily driver, as they call it. FireFox on Android is phenomenal for a lot of reasons. One is that its emulation of desktop sites as compared to mobile versions of websites is far better than what Chrome offers. The second thing is that it also allows for extensions, like you can run HTTPS everywhere from the EFF.org on your mobile device using FireFox, which is a great thing to have. There's things like AdBlock Plus that you can run, on FireFox or AdBlock Edge, whatever one you want to use, that you can have built right into the web browser. And just a ton of great features. Also, one of the best things that you can do with FireFox on Android is you can put in a quit button, which isn't really a problem. If you're using CyanogenMod has the option to where if you long press the back button, it will kill the process that you're running. But with FireFox, it will quit and it can actually delete all of your history, clean the whole browser up when you quit. And so, it doesn't have to clean up everything if you don't want it to do that, but it can at the very least kill the process. And that's really important. And the reason that it's really important is that a lot of the things that you may still want to do, because again, you're not going to get your hands on the Twitter app. You're not going to get your hands on the Facebook app. You're not going to get your hands on the Google Plus app if you happen to use that. Whatever. A lot of apps are not going, I am saying if you want to run an anonymous secure system, you don't want them running. You don't want them on you could only get them through the Google Play Store anyway. And we're not using the Google Play Store in this case. So a lot of what you want to do, you're going to be doing, a lot of the more proprietary or popular things you're going to be doing through the web browser. And Firefox does all of them very well. Running Facebook, even in Firefox, runs very, very nicely. Running Twitter runs very, very nicely. We're going to talk about using Bitcoin in this special in a minute. And honestly, you can use, if you want to buy things, again, we're talking about, we're going full paranoid here. And if you want to buy things, you can get gift cards through the gift.com, GYFT website using FireFox. The web browser really makes a lot of this very possible, to where you can still live a relatively, comfortable life buying things anonymously, through this. And so because most people have HTML5 activated or whatever, with Firefox, and Firefox also, like we mentioned about how DuckDuckGo can search Tor, Firefox works very well with Orbot, which is the Tor backend for Android, which we'll talk about that more in a bit here. So the other advantage, and perhaps the greatest advantage to using Firefox on Android, is that it has its own, I mentioned this in a previous episode, but it has its own certificate authority that is independent from Android's itself. And that's a good thing, because a lot of times some ugly malware has gotten into Android, because for whatever reason, the Android certificate authority isn't as updated as much as it could be. As to where with Firefox, especially when you're running stuff through that, you have kind of a second layer of security just from using Firefox itself, as to where Chrome, doesn't really have that. Now, ironically, there's kind of a trade-off there, because if you were paying for an antivirus service, like say Lookout or whatever, they actually, because Chrome uses the same, same security system as the entire Android operating system itself, a lot of times your antivirus systems can act, can do safe browsing, as it's called, with Chrome. Okay, but that's the thing, is that Firefox really gives you that functionality, but totally for free and right out of the gate. And again, most of the services that you want to use that are available online, you're going to be doing, in this case with Dark Android, you're going to be doing through the web browser. So having that second layer of security is a great thing to have. And Firefox is really fast too. I think it's faster than Chrome on Android. So, I don't feel that there's any good reason to not use it, regardless of, what your goal is for your device. Why don't we go ahead, before we get into some fun stuff, why don't we talk about Tor? And this is one of the nicer things about Android in general. Now, there is the overall chance that Tor is not necessarily the most secure thing on the planet anymore, and that's certainly very plausible. However, if you are in the mindset that we're talking about, in why one wants this dark Android device, this dark Android tablet, this secure anonymous tablet, you are running off of, by and large, a different identity anyway. Okay. And so in that case, Tor, it's still acceptable to use, and it's still not a bad idea perhaps to be running anyway. Now, running Tor does drain the battery a bit. Be very clear on that. It does affect your speed a bit. Be very clear on that. But the Guardian project, they have a whole ton of software, all of which is also, again, available in the F-Droid store. Okay, but you have Orbot, which, if you have a rooted device, and if you're running CyanogenMod, pretty much you already have a rooted device. If you have a rooted device, Orbot can just force every app that you use, whether it's designed for it or not, to go through Tor. And you want that. Okay, you want that to happen. Actually, that reminds me, something I forgot to bring up earlier is that if you do want that always on connection, you're going to be using this to do, you want to be able to communicate at all times. The thing I recommend getting is a Wi-Fi hotspot. Okay, one of these more inexpensive Wi-Fi hotspots. In some countries, they sell you Wi-Fi hotspots that actually have unlimited data, amazingly. And then you could connect to the Wi-Fi of that Wi-Fi hotspot that you carry with you, like one of these pocket Wi-Fi hotspots. And then you could just run the tablet through that, and then, then you could do all kinds of crazy things with that. And so anyway, that's something to consider if you wanted to do that. But so Tor, so you can run through Tor using Orbot, and the Guardian project has a lot of other apps too. They have Chat Secure, which is a great system to use. It will allow you to use, Google chat, or essentially, I mean, it's not Hangouts where you have the ability of video and a lot of the other things that come from using Google Hangouts. But it does allow you to use, Gtalk. It allows you to use Facebook Messenger, relatively anonymously. This all runs through Orbot natively. It also allows for XMPP, a whole slew of options. Chat Secure is really good for, interacting with people, chatting with people, though there's other software we're going to talk about in a minute. The Guardian Project also offers, they offer a camera app. Not that I'm going to say this is the stock camera app you want to use, but there is a camera app that allows you to have a degree of privacy where you can fuzz out people, what they. I'll put a link in the show notes to the Guardian Project's website so you can look at that. It also, they have other things, with the camera app, you can kind of like fuzz out, people's faces if they're concerned about the privacy or whatever. They have a software called PixelKnot that allows you to send hidden messages within a picture that someone else can kind of unlock when you send them the picture. This is like Snapchat on steroids. It's really something. And they have other apps. Note Cipher, which is a notepad that you can lock down and is encrypted. That's a hell of an idea. And there's others. They have a pretty big suite of software. They also offer CSIP Simple, which is the way if you wanted to do encrypted voice communications with this device, with your tablet, this is the way to go. And you're going to go through, you have to set up an account with Ostel, OSTEL. Again, all of this is, you can read about on the Guardian Project website. And that works really well. So, and you set up like this, it's not something that you would use to make a normal phone call, with your average 7-digit, or 10, 11-digit, whatever phone number. This has a different system. You use different kinds of phone numbers. You're not going to be working within, the system that exists today. You would be calling people with that have like a 5 or 6 or digit phone number. And but understand, it's not your average phone number. It's not using your average phone system. This is all encrypted. And that has a lot of features that you can use as well. There's add-ons for CSIP Simple. So for voice communications, that is the direction that you want to be going, which brings up the point. So we've talked about how you can use Tor. Everything on it will go through Tor, and that's exciting. Okay, which brings up the interesting point, though, that getting SMS, okay, an SMS that works within, the phone system that we know of today, is one of the areas that may not work so well with this whole system. Okay, so keep that in mind. That if people are trying to reach you through SMS, that I haven't totally figured out a good way, a good open source way for that to happen. But, maybe for some that's not a big deal. I mean, I like to communicate through email almost exclusively, either email or Telegram. And, those don't require either or. Now, some would say, well, but I use SMS for my two-factor authentication. There's options that work around that, and we'll get into those in a moment. But while I mentioned Telegram, let's talk about it. Telegram is another piece of software that is available through the F-Droid store. I'm a huge fan of Telegram, and Telegram now actually works, with usernames. So as I understand it, you can set it up without needing a phone number. Now, speaking of this SMS and needing a phone number and all that, I mean, certainly it's easy enough to just get what they call a burner, a phone. You could get a little dumb phone that you can operate monthly for pennies. I mean, almost literal pennies. That's a possibility. And then you could have that phone number that would allow you to connect to Telegram if you wanted it attached to your phone number, or to receive SMS messages and all of that. Again, I'm describing, a full paranoid situation. Please keep that in mind. I'm not saying that this is what people have to do. I'd never tell people what they have to do in the first place. Okay. But this is that, and adjust this to your comfort levels. Okay. So Telegram, that's available, and Telegram is this just fantastic messaging system, all the way around. It's also a great way to send files. You can send up to 1 gigabyte files to other people via Telegram. They have, all the stickers, all the modern accoutrement that you would expect within, a messaging system. And as long as you're doing client-side encryption, which you would be able to do with your tablet, you are, about as safe as any app would allow. And so that, it's an attractive option in that way. You can also, of course, send pictures. I think you can send video. You can send voice messages with it. You can't make phone calls or like do audio chat via, Telegram, but you can send voice messages through it, which is pretty cool. Stephanie and I have actually sent each other voice messages in the past, which is really nice. So Telegram is more or less your best option as far as messaging goes. And I have seen a lot of adoption, fortunately, and I certainly I'm not taking credit for this, but I've been talking about Telegram for a long time on Sovryn Tech, but in just the past couple months, I've seen a lot of people start really jumping on board with Telegram, and we've done stories on Sovryn Tech highlighting how it is being widely accepted in a lot of other countries around the world. And actually, when you get, especially in Europe and large parts of Asia, including Russia, you'll find that Telegram, even if people in America don't know about it, suddenly they know, everybody's using Telegram when you go elsewhere. Okay. So, America is this little microcosm of bullshit apps and people just don't realize that, or in other parts of the world, there's insanely popular things that you've just never heard of. And Telegram is one of those. And Telegram is great because it's run by an anarchist. It's funded and run by, a guy that one would perhaps describe as an ANCAP, and that's fine, whatever. I mean, the point is he's an anarchist. It's not like WhatsApp that's run by Mark Zuckerberg. I don't care how good the encryption is. If it's run by Mark fucking Zuckerberg, I'm not touching it. So anyway, so Telegram is a really good option there. Before we get into, some of the other stuff, let's talk about some of the fun things that one could do with all of this, because I'm worried some people might sound like, oh, this is all very depressing. It's like, I'm going totally underground. Where's my dark sunglasses and all this shit? But some of the fun things you can do, and one of the easiest is with gaming. Now, I think you're probably feeling like, well, without the Play Store, how the fuck am I going to do any gaming on this thing? Well, Humble Bundle. And Humble Bundle, actually the app for Humble Bundle that lets you install the games from the Android games available from Humble Bundle. And if you don't know about Humble Bundle, please go to humblebundle.com because everything you purchase on there, part of the proceeds goes, part of what you pay goes to charity, which is really great. Usually it'll go to the EFF, it'll go to, other charities that help out children, and they accept Bitcoin. So that's one of the beauties, is that you're no credit card required to be able to have a good time, even if you are going full paranoid with this. And it's important to point out that the Humble Bundle app, soon, as we understand it, will actually no longer be in the Play Store, because it is going to have features that go against Google's terms of service. Not unlike what happened with the big bad Amazon app, is that the Amazon app allowed you to buy apps from Amazon within it. And because it allowed for that, they had to remove it from the Play Store. The Play Store is not okay with you pretty much having other ecosystems to access, other app ecosystems or app repositories through an app that's in the Play Store. They don't allow for it. So the Humble Bundle app is going to be, you're only going to be able to download it outside of the Play Store anyway in the very near future. So this is an option. You can still, I think you can install it without the Play Store anyway right now, but it's going to be the only way to do it in the near future. So learning to get away from the Play Store may not be a bad idea, even from an entertainment standpoint. And Humble Bundle, they offer the games they offer pretty much, almost exclusively the games I have for Android come from that. And if they don't have it right away, eventually they do get it. And you get it with Bitcoin, and usually you get it for a very cheap price. There's times, you can put up $1 and you end up with like 10, 12 games. So plenty of fun to be had. Even, some of the best games, Riptide GP2, my favorite Android game, was available through that. And there's a whole slew of others that you can get, through Humble Bundle. So keep that in mind. The only thing is, and I hate these games anyway, but games that have in-app purchases, I'm not exactly sure how that would work, because usually that does want the Play Store to access for credit. So that might be a bit of an issue, but I despise games that require in-app purchases anyway. So I don't know that I would go through that, and maybe Humble Bundle will solve that issue as well, in the future through the app itself. So something to keep in mind. Another great bit of gaming one can do on Android is, of course, emulators for systems like the NES, the Genesis, the Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS. Go down the list of the systems, even PlayStation, and you can get one of the most powerful emulating suites on F-Droid, and that is RetroArch. And that, totally open source. It may not there's some games that will play rough on it, but by and large, 90% of the games you throw at it play very, very well. And there's other options too. And RetroArch actually has, it's an all-in-one. It's a suite. It comes with, it has a PlayStation emulator built into it. It has an NES emulator built into it. It has a Genesis emulator built into it. Okay. And then, you power up, you get your torrent client running, and you can get access to all these games and download them, locally, and you're good to go. And actually, speaking of torrents, this is one of the more exciting things that I get to announce on this special, is that one of my favorite desktop clients for torrenting is now available for Android, and it's available in the F-Droid store, and that is QBitTorrent. It's the letter Q, BitTorrent. And that is, I love QBitTorrent, totally open source. It does a great job. I use Deluge now on my desktop, but before I was using Deluge, I used QBitTorrent. And this is a new development that it's available for Android. This was one of the things that I had to recommend using the Play Store for in the Dark Android 1 special, where I recommended TTorrent Pro. But I don't need to do that anymore, because and it's great because QBitTorrent works awesome right out of the gate. And TTorrent Pro you have to pay for. QBitTorrent, totally free. You're good to go, and you can torrent all the good shit. But what happens? How about this? What happens when you download some movies or some music or whatever? Well, let's cover what apps are good for that. If you did install CyanogenMod in our Dark Android 2 special here that we're talking about, that already came with a music app called Apollo, which is really good. It's a feature-rich bit of music software. Okay, and now granted, we're talking about a tablet. We're talking about an Android device that is able to work really well offline. That is one of the things I really wanted to stress with this device, with the special, is a lot more offline functionality, which isn't outlandish, because that's one of the things that a lot of other, companies, Google, Facebook, whatever, they are making it so that a lot of their mobile apps have, a lot of offline functionality. So it's a direction worth going into, because the big boys are going in that direction themselves. So anyway, I don't have any options here for music streaming. Okay, there are ways to set that up. If someone really wants to know how to make that happen, you'd have to have a home-based server to really do it well. You could also, though, admittedly, you could go through Google Play Music if you used FireFox. You could stream from FireFox, but I think you'd run into issues with that. As far as like playback, you'd have to have the screen on at all times, and I think there'd be other issues there. But that too, YouTube is fully functional within a web browser, because you're not going to be downloading a YouTube app. But that would also work within Firefox as well. Like I said, the fact HTML5 and the fact that the Firefox web browser does such a damn good job on Android is really what makes a lot of this very, very possible. To have a very anonymous device that still has a lot of access to a lot of the a lot of the niceties of the internet. So, but anyway, if you have, some locally stored music, and maybe you compressed it down on a computer before because, especially if we're on a Nexus 7, there is obviously space limitations. Now, you could always hook up an external drive, music drive to this device. Those are becoming very popular to where they plug right into the MHCP port on the bottom of your device, which is the same place where your device charges. Keep that in mind. But you could plug in a device there and then, you could have tons of storage, even if you don't have an SD card slot. So that's an option to consider as well. But to do music, you'd want to use Apollo. And you can download Apollo independently as well in the F-Droid store. You don't have to have CyanogenMod to use that. But that's a possibility. And for video, the VLC Player, really the Cadillac of video players for any desktop, is now available for Android. And it can be had within the F-Droid store itself. And VLC, admittedly, does not work. It's a work in progress on Android, even though they've made it, officially available for every device. For a while, they're very specific in what devices could use it. But VLC, it does the job just fine. It really does. And actually, if you're running CyanogenMod, the file explorer built into CyanogenMod, I think, can play videos pretty well right out of the gate anyway. But VLC is an option, certainly, if you do want it. So, but what about podcasts? Now, Apollo, you could just download the podcasts from a website, through FireFox, and play them through Apollo, and it would do a fine job. But there's some features kind of missing, things like listening to podcasts, sped up, like at 1.5x, or I usually listen to podcasts at 1.8x, and which is a great thing. I mean, people don't realize just how awesome that is. That you can do that, because you can listen to, 2-3 hour podcasts inside of, an hour, or around that time frame. And so you can squeeze in a whole lot more information, than one normally could. And boy, that's such a benefit. I mean, I'm just constantly listening to shit and I'm able to get so much of it in so quickly because I can speed up the podcast. So, but if you want an app that can do a lot of that, and that is more of your standard client for getting podcasts, there is Antenna Pod. And that, again, available in the F-Droid store. And this app, it does what it does. It does what, a lot of other, like Podkicker and some others that are available in the Google Play Store. It has pretty much all the features that those do. So that's a handy thing to have for podcasts. Okay, so a little more, I guess, while we're on the subject of entertainment, let's finish that up. If you like to read ebooks on your device, which I sure as hell do. That's half the reason I love mobile devices, and more than half, actually. It's like 90% of why I love mobile devices is ebooks alone. And there's an app called Cool Reader. That's about the best one I've seen that's available in the F-Droid store for reading ebooks. Also, there is Comics Reader, and that's not spelled with an X or anything. It's spelled just like comics normally is. But Comics Reader is a really good full-featured, comic book app if you want to read comic books, which is actually surprisingly really good, really plausible, possible, really well implemented on a 7-inch screen. Doesn't work so well on the smaller ones, even though there's like, Moby Comics, I think it's called, is the name of one of the comic book apps that solve that problem of reading on a small screen. That I think you can get independently too, but it's not open source, as to where Comics Reader most certainly is. So I think that covers by and large a lot of the entertainment aspects of this. So let's get into some other things. And I don't want this special to go too long. Let's talk about some of the other possibilities available. I think one thing that people would ask about, what if I want to write? What kind of Office software is there? Well, as far as Office software, I don't know of a good open source spreadsheet option. Okay. But one of the things you could do about that is you could, go to like Zoho Office or something along those lines and do that through Firefox, do that through your web browser. Okay. So there is that option. to do things that way. But if you're just looking to do some word processing, there's NoNonsense Notes. That's literally what it's called, NoNonsense Notes. If you're looking to do, that's a good app and it stores everything locally. If you're looking to do, really the best Office app out there, you're not going to get through the F-Droid store, and that'd be Office Pro. That's really, really good. But if you're looking to do perhaps something that is cloud stored, one of the things that people don't use enough, in my opinion, is they have what are called kind of Etherpads, where it's a website that you go to, and it allows you, and it gives you a word processing interface, and you can just type away on it. And one of the problems with those, though, that I think the reason a lot of people don't use them is that all you need to do is know the URL where this online WordPad exists, and then you can access it and edit it, and you can't protect it. Okay, because like RiseUp offers this service along with a whole lot of other people do. And there's actually one called Protected Text. And these guys do a really good implementation, but it's at protectedtext.com, and you can actually password protect the URL that you go to. You're protecting the content of the site. You're not really protecting the URL itself. So you would essentially create a URL that, it would be protectedtext.com/whatever. And then you could just, you could type away on that. And obviously you would access this through FireFox. And then you would have like a cloud stored text document, and it would be protected by a password, and it would be encrypted. So that's, and it's encrypted very well. Check out protectedtext.com because they offer, they have a great implementation, on a lot of this. So that's possible. Obviously you would run that through the web browser. And something to keep in mind too, is that if you wanted a lot of this stuff that we're talking about using through the web browser, like if you're using gift.com, GYFT or whatever, or protected text, is that when you bookmark it within Firefox, you can actually create an icon, a home screen icon that you could easily, touch or click on or whatever and do your thing. Right from the home screen of Android. So you don't have to just keep going into Firefox, then click on a bookmark. You could treat it like it was more or less a normal app. And just that Firefox is the wrapper around it. So that's something certainly to consider. And, with Office stuff, CyanogenMod, Android, all that, they're really good about connecting to Bluetooth devices now, like Bluetooth keyboards and Bluetooth mice, and so you can have what is effectively, a full-blown laptop, that you could create out of just having this tablet. So Office solutions are kind of plausible. And if you do run into some kind of open source, non-Play Store Office solution, you can email me and I'll certainly, give you credit for finding that, and talking about it, and I'll talk about it on a future episode of the show. Cause I didn't really find, the best solution for any of that, but NoNonsense Notes, if you're looking to do some good old fashioned word processing, works just fine. All right, now let's switch up. How about cameras? What do we do with the cameras? What are the options? Well, there's a great piece of software called Open Camera, and open as in open source. And that has a lot of really good focusing features, a lot of the features that you would expect from Google's stock camera app, and others. So, of course, CyanogenMod comes with its own camera app that does a pretty good job. And actually, it has a lot of interesting features. I think the stock camera app for CyanogenMod will allow you to keep raw photos, as in full, no compressing, none of that, which is kind of unique. That's pretty interesting. But if you're not going with CyanogenMod, you can certainly go with Open Camera, for your camera needs, and it allows for video recording too as well. Let's see what else we got here. QR codes. While we're talking about the camera, there is an app called Barcode Scanner that does a great job of scanning a QR or a barcode and giving you the information off of that. That's about the best one that's within the F-Droid store. Let's see what else we've got here. TELNET. This is some of the more advanced stuff. We have other things to talk about. But if you want to get into, a terminal, you want to use, it's called Terminal Emulator. And this comes stock with CyanogenMod as well. But if you want it, you want to grab that Terminal Emulator. That's literally the name of it. Again, all of these names are in the show notes so that you can find them. You can type them in correctly and find them in the F-Droid store. Then if you wanted to go a little crazy and use Telnet or SSH, there is ConnectBot. That's a handy thing to use. That is, again, open source completely. How about, email. This is important. This is one of the most important things out there because, again, like we said, you're not going to have, Gmail installed, which I'll admit the Gmail app is really good. Like they really did a good job with the Gmail app. If you have the Play Store on your device, I mean, by and large, other than the fact that you can't really implement PGP with it, the Gmail app is just a great solution. So anyway, but if you're not using that, of course, the best thing to use is K9. And this has not changed from Dark Android 1. K9 is awesome. It has the bulk of the features that you could want from an email client. I really can't think of ones that it doesn't have. And also the nice thing about K9 is that if you want to, use PGP, if you want to send encrypted emails, it works really well with a variety of PGP implementations on Android. Open Keychain, AGP. I mean, there's a lot of options. Open Keychain is about the easiest one I've seen available. So now there is, one of the things that you won't get access to, unfortunately, is the Whiteout Mail app. Whiteout.io, which is this really exciting, very simple PGP implementation that's available for just about anything. And unfortunately, the Whiteout Mail app is only available in the Play Store. However, you can, if you go to mail.whiteout.io, you can actually access your Whiteout email and send encrypted email through the website itself. You can log in and set up on the website itself. That's not as good as having a full client. There are some degree of perhaps security issues for the fact that you're doing it through a website. So do keep that in mind. That's not, it's, if Whiteout Mail is 100%, if a Whiteout Mail client, an app, is 100% secure, the website's like 98%. So keep that in mind. But it's still a great, even doing it through the website is still a great implementation to have access to. So there's email. How about Reddit? I don't really care for Reddit. It annoys the fuck out of me. Of course, you could use it through FireFox just as, very easily. But there is a really cool Reddit app in the F-Droid store, and it is RedReader Beta, and it is in beta. But it's pretty cool how that operates. If you like using Reddit, that is really the way to go. So now how about IRC? If you want to get on IRC, which I'm a big fan, I feel people should be using IRC quite a bit. IRC, you have what's called Atomic. That's the name of the client, available again in the F-Droid store. This is another area where back when we did Dark Android 1, there was not a good app that was available in F-Droid that was open source that people could use. And so I said, well, you're going to have to use this app from the Play Store, or you'd have to sideload it or whatever. But Atomic is an awesome implementation, totally free, because actually Android IRC, which is the one I recommended in Dark Android 1, you have to pay for. And this one you do not. And it does an awesome job right out of the gate. Okay, so how about authorization? Now, this is a big one. This is, we're talking about security here. Two-factor authentication is a big deal. And one of the things that a lot of people use their phones for now is to have that one-time password generator, like Google Authenticator or AUTH. There's a few different ones, but the best one in the F-Droid store, and really the best one all around, it doesn't look as pretty as AUTH, and AUTH is kind of cool because it has a desktop version as well. But the best one that you can get your hands on, it's called FreeOTP. And it allows, it does all of it. It does the, the time locked versions. It does all the different versions of one-time passwords that you can get. Obviously, you can do like you normally do, where you scan the QR code to get the key, the private key to be able to do two-factor authentication. A lot of good options there. So that's a good one to use. It's actually, it's again, not as good as AUTH, but if you don't like AUTH, really FreeOTP is better than Google Authenticator in many, many ways. And something else too that Cyanogen mod really allows for is it has a privacy guard where you have the option to password protect every single app on your mobile device, on your tablet or whatever. There's some software that allows you to do that built in. Not to say that that's software available in the F-Droid store. One of them is actually OneDrive. Microsoft OneDrive, the official OneDrive app, lets you lock the app completely on its own. It's a built-in implementation. But that's a nice thing to have too, because if you wanted to lock down your two-factor authentication passwords, you could have a password that does that. That's really handy. So let's see what else we got here. Keyboards. What about keyboards? Do we just use the stock keyboard? Yeah, that's not a bad idea to just use, the stock keyboard itself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the hacker's keyboard is a great option now as well, and it always has been. It's my go-to keyboard in many ways. Hacker's keyboard has the reason that it's so unique, or the reason it's called Hacker's keyboard, is because especially on a tablet, what it will allow you to do is to put in like the Control and Alt keys, which we were talking about. If you want to run a Telnet or an SSH client earlier, you need those keys, and Hacker's keyboard puts those on there. Control and Alt keys mean nothing on Android. Like they don't serve a purpose. But if you're accessing something other than Android, you want that. Okay, you want that bad. So that's the hacker's keyboard is a great thing to have, and again, it is open source. Keep that in mind. And it's that hacker's keyboard has been tested pretty hard, and it doesn't get updated much. Not because that there'd be a security issue, but to prove the point that there aren't security issues, that it doesn't need to be updated and whatever else. So that's easily, if you've got a keyboard, you want that one, and then it's themable, just like Swift Key and a whole bunch of these other keyboards are, and it has a built-in dictionary, all that good stuff. So Hacker's keyboard is an awesome. It's been my favorite keyboard for years. So, and really, I can't recommend any other above it. Speaking of the fact that the keyboard has a dictionary, how about a dictionary app? These can actually be pretty important and can be used throughout other apps. And about the best one going for, that's on F-Droid is, I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's AARD. So Aard or Aard? I don't know. But that works really, really well. An excellent dictionary app. It's not at the level, certainly, of the multimedia experience that that dictionary.com's premium app is, but Aard or AARD does a hell of a job, and actually will work, like I said, often with, it'll work as a back end for some other software. So handy to have around. But, then when you have a dictionary, what about an encyclopedia? Well, of course, one could say, yeah, easily I'll use Wikipedia. And absolutely, I recommend using Wikipedia. And it works very well as a mobile site, of course, within FireFox itself. But there's actually a great open source app available called WikiP Off. And what this does, again, we're talking about a lot of offline functionality here. Okay. And WikiP Off is a Wikipedia app. So you can, look at Wikipedia through it when you're connected, but it will allow you to actually save a lot of articles offline to look at later. So this is handy to have whether you're doing this setup, this dark Android setup or not. I think it's a great implementation. So let's talk about some maybe the most important thing is that, okay, fine. You've got this totally, a lot of open source software, so you're doing really good on that end. We've covered a lot of anonymity, a lot of security issues. You've got the device, tailor-made to work with System D. But how do you buy anything, for fuck's sake? And we talked about, of course, how you can use gift.com through Firefox and whatever. But this is an area that definitely deserves, the refresher. And that is, of course, using Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now, you don't just have to use Bitcoin anymore, and for a couple reasons. One of them is that NXT, we'll talk about the Bitcoin wallets in a second, but NXT, my favorite cryptocurrency outside of Bitcoin as things stand right this second, January of 2015, that has a website, a web wallet that works really well. Now, there is an Android app for that web wallet, but it's not available in F-Droid yet, though as I understand it, that may be changing. But it's mynxt.info will allow you to do that. And the web wallet's really good. And MyNXT is actually doing a great job, or mynxt.info is doing a lot of interesting things for NXT, where they're allowing for extensions within, NXT extensions to do all kinds of wild things within their platform itself. So that's something that you can look into, as far as that goes. And really, when you start talking about web wallets, that opens up a lot of different areas. There's the Coin Prism web wallet, for colored coins with Bitcoin, that I really like, and I've highlighted on Sovryn Tech before. And there's others, but and also, as I mentioned in the last episode of Sovryn Tech, episode, 107, I had mentioned that there is now a Namecoin wallet available for Android. And this Namecoin wallet is not in the F-Droid store yet, but I think you can get your hands on the APK, and it is a beta. But you're going to want to keep an eye on that, to keep it good and updated. But you can get the APK for it and install that, much like how you would install F-Droid. And that's awesome. Now, I don't know yet, and I'm kind of hoping that this does happen. It's a light node, okay, meaning that it doesn't download the entire blockchain onto your device, but I'm hoping that the Namecoin wallet, as it gets more, or the Namecoin client for Android, as it gets developed more, that it will allow for you to access .bits. .bit domains, which is the whole point of Namecoin in many ways. Not the whole point, but enough of a point, through Android. And that would be really exciting. That's something that has to happen. Okay. It really has to happen. It's good to see that it's going in the right direction. And there's other Namecoin implementations, our ideas where Namecoin is getting used that are coming. Boy, how many times have I said implementation in this episode? I lost track. But like OK Turtles and some others that will use, the Namecoin blockchain as a backend. And I'm sure a lot of that, especially if the interest is shown, will get, it can be used through Android, hopefully in the future. So that's something to look out for. But that does exist. So, and speaking of another wallet that you can get the APK for that does not exist within F-Droid is Mycelium wallet. Now, this is still the premier Android wallet. It is still the as far as Android and Android alone, it is the one. So I don't necessarily, there's others I'm going to recommend, but that is still the cream of the crop. Mycelium really stands tall, and they're doing great work all the time. They do more than just the Android wallet these days. They're doing great stuff. But what are some other options? Well, the older version of the Coinbase client is available in the F-Droid store. So you're not going to get the new material design, but honestly, I don't like the new Coinbase wallet setup on Android, the one that they recently updated to. I don't know. I thought the older version was better anyway. So you can use Coinbase, and of course you can just use Coinbase through Firefox on Android as well. That's certainly possible. And speaking of another one that you could use through Firefox is RushWallet, which is not unlike how we were talking about with protected text, where you just have to remember the URL. RushWallet is that. It is totally a web wallet. You're not going to access it, in any way offline. But that allows you to, as long as you know the URL, you can go to that. But RushWallet has a lot of other features too. It allows for fundraisers. It allows for all kinds of things. It's a really great service. And overall, I think it might be my favorite Bitcoin wallet system. And largely because, you talk about this ease of use thing. It doesn't get much easier than that. Like I mean that's why I mentioned in episode 107, I was like, we need that easy to use app. I don't know how it can get any easier than what RushWallet does. And there's other reasons that I like RushWallet. An alternative to what I'm describing to you here with Dark Android 2, that I've mentioned in Sovryn Tech in the past, is if you had an e-reader, if you used one of those e-ink readers like from Kobo or, or like a Kindle from Amazon, whatever. If you used those, you could have a Bitcoin wallet on your e-reader as long as you have an online connection using RushWallet. So RushWallet really opens up a lot of options, kind of like how whiteout.io. While certainly there's things that are, that hunker down better, it's this great, cross-platform, easy to use thing that can get a lot of people involved, in the matters of System D. And of course, Bitcoin, I think, is the premier currency of that system. So that's really good. But there's others. There's the stock Bitcoin wallet that's just called Bitcoin, that is available in the F-Droid store. That works really well. Been tried and true, updated regularly. It works really, really well. And there's GreenAddress.it. Now, this is kind of a newer player in the wallet space, but very secure. Like the amount of things you have to go through security layers that you go through for Green Address is really impressive, and it allows for brain wallet functionality, a whole slew of things. It's a pretty full-featured thing, and it's totally open source, and it is available in the F-Droid store. So GreenAddress.it is something worth looking at. Also, if you happen to use Chromium or Chrome or whatever, GreenAddress.it is a great wallet on the desktop as well, if you're using Chrome or something based off of Chrome, like SRware Iron, or any of those, Komodo Dragon, any of those other Chrome-based browsers that are more open source than Chrome is. That's something to consider as well with GreenAddress.it, because that would allow for some degree of cross-platform if you were interested in that. So a lot of great options this year for Bitcoin, way more, because last time the only thing I really could recommend was Mycelium. Now there are plenty of options, and I mean Coinbase was available back then too, but I didn't think that their wallet had really matured well enough. Now it's matured. Unfortunately, on the official side, it's matured far too much, in my opinion. But if you can just use the older wallet, and as I understand it, there isn't really a security issue at all on that aspect, you end up in pretty good shape. So a lot of great options for cryptocurrencies in general. NXT, Namecoin, Bitcoin, really perhaps, the only ones that even totally matter, in my opinion. So that's great that they are very much usable in this way. So let's get into a little bit of bonus stuff. I don't want this special to go too much longer. But some bonus stuff is that, something I tout often and that I really enjoy using, and quite a few people are getting in touch with me in this way, is through BitMessage. Now, I have heard chatter that a Android client for BitMessage is being developed. I'm sure when that comes out, it would be available in the F-Droid store. And so, but that is not here yet. But if you still wanted to use BitMessage, there is an option. There's a couple of them. One is there's a way to get BitMessage, but so one of them requires you to have a BitMessage client on a computer somewhere, which that might be antithetical to you having Android be your main device and where you do most of your, quote unquote business from. And that is, you could have it run through, kind of IMAP, I guess. I've seen this done. And then it could just go to like K9 to your mail client and you could work from that. I don't that's not one necessarily I recommend. I recommend doing it, but it's not one that's like easy to set up. The other, though, is very easy to set up, but then you lose kind of the point in security of using BitMessage. But if you just wanted to communicate within the BitMessage ecosystem, okay, you would use it's bitmessage.ch. Okay. And what it'll do is it will have BitMessage run through your email address. It's not like the IMAP solution. But you lose that encryption essentially because it is going, pretty open through your email address. But if you just wanted to be able to talk to people via BitMessage, that's really the way. The way to go is bitmessage.ch. You can look into that for yourself. And there's a whole lot of fun tricks actually that aren't necessarily Android related that you could do with bitmessage.ch. Some great listeners and great friends have talked about in the past with me. So that's certainly something to keep in mind. Also, in the F-Droid store and only in the F-Droid store, you can actually download the I2P app. And this is, if you're looking for another layer of anonymity and security, I2P is a Tor alternative, and perhaps more important to be using now that Tor, the viability of Tor is kind of in question. The I2P app, this is one that will most certainly drain the shit out of your battery. Keep that in mind. Okay. But it works very well. I've run the I2P app on various mobile devices before, and it did the job. So this is a Tor-like thing. If you don't know about I2P, I recommend, go ahead, hit up Wikipedia and start reading up on that. I'd have to do really a whole special to kind of lay out that a lot more. But suffice to say, it's more or less a Tor alternative. So you've got that. Now, VPNs, that's something else that we didn't get to, and there was one other thing I wanted to get to as well. But VPNs, you have OpenVPN is available in the F-Droid store, and so if you have like RiseUp, if you have a RiseUp account or an OsTichi, I believe, right, OsTichi account or things like that, it takes a little bit of work. But you can set up, you can create your own CAs, your PEM files, and you could set up a VPN, through the OpenVPN client. Or if you purchased a VPN service through something else like Viper VPN or whatever, I'm not endorsing those VPNs. I'm just saying if you did it through that, there's ways to get these certificates from that VPN, and then you could just implement it through OpenVPN. So that's another anonymity option as well. Keep in mind that a lot of these things like Tor, I2P, VPNs, and whatever, they are going to put a real significant, or a noticeable drain on your battery. Do keep those points in mind. And so, and that depends on how, how long you need that battery to last. That depends on various persons. So, but they do work, and they work really, really well. Also, another one, disconnect.me is a really interesting choice to look into. And you can, disconnect.me, a lot of their apps, now they're great because I recommend using them online because they can, even with Google Chrome, they can anonymize your search through Google. They're a great option as far as search goes. And they have a lot of apps for Android. And those... and they accept Bitcoin as payment and whatever, and for donations. And those actually work really, really well. And a lot of their apps have gotten taken down from the Play Store. You can still download the APKs separately. Okay, but the Play Store won't allow for them to happen. And in large part, it's because the disconnect.me apps interfere with, I think, what Google's wants to do, with what Google wants to do with Android. Okay, so disconnect.me is a great option. They offer, a VPN service. That's definitely one to go through to look at. And they actually, we were talking a little bit earlier in this special about, some of these apps for in-app purchases, they require you to use the Play Store and thus Google Wallet or whatever. But I think disconnect.me might actually offer the solution to a lot of this, as to where a lot of these apps, you can just go and get codes from their website, and you could pay for it, with Bitcoin or, with a gift card or whatever. And then you would get the code, and then you can just implement the code into the app itself. And like, say it was even with a game, you could, like with Riptide GP2, you can purchase, you don't need, to do any in-app purchases with Riptide, but you could, get a code from the website, from their Vector Units website, and then you could implement that, and then that would give you in-app currency. Okay, so Disconnect.me actually is a case in point of how you work around the Play Store's payment system. Is that a lot of times you can just go to the the developer's website, and you can get you can buy pro versions and whatever else there. So the Disconnect.me ecosystem is an important one. App system is an important one to look at. Because they offer a lot of services. They are open source. They really, and they've been taking Bitcoin since the beginning. They are one of those companies that's really taking a strong stance against, not just governments, but also, multinational corporations that are wanting to spy upon you and what you do and use your metadata and search data against you. Or maybe not against you, but in any case, they want to use it on you. So that's a really great option to look at. I will put a link in the show notes for where you can get access to that. But really, you just type in disconnect.me, and then you can find all the options there. And it's a pretty inexpensive service too. So do look at that. And the last one, the last app, I guess, I'm not saving the best for last, but if you are one of those people that is very task oriented, a lot of people love these quick task apps that you can use. And there's one that's just simply called Tasks on the F-Droid store. And it's really good. I use it. I love it. Very handy to have, again, totally open source. And when we say open source, I mean, most of these, and this is the nice thing too, is that F-Droid tells you what license these things are under. Is it GPL version 2, GPL version 3? Is it MIT? They go down the list, and they will warn you also when, an app is perhaps going to connect to a proprietary service at some point, or what possible issues are. Like even with FireFox, it will tell you, say, certain settings that you can turn off to make it more secure. F-Droid is so good. People should be using this, whether you're going, dark Android or not. I think it's a great, great service. But keep in mind, there is the danger that some of these apps are not so fully checked out. Now, the ones that I listed off in this special, I'm pretty confident about. Okay, confident enough that I'd use, that I would use it, and that if I was, going, full anonymous and whatever, that's what I would do, or if interacting with systemd or whatever, that's what I would do. And that's really what all of this is about: is getting into using systems that support systemd, that support the open source movement, that support Libra software, whatever phrasing you want to use, that support freedom, that support ignoring the big boys, ignoring those that would infringe on your privacy and your quote unquote rights, or that would infringe upon you in any way. That's what this is all about. And so with the Dark Android 2 special, use this. You don't have to go, as far as I went in describing, keeping away from various things. If you want to use what's in the Play Store, there's some great options within the Play Store, certainly to use. And some of them are, some of what's in the F-Droid store is also available in the Play Store, like Telegram and some others. Okay. But, if you want to start getting away from that, if you want to start getting away from Google's universe, because while yes, Google is one of the lead developers behind Android, there is still what they call the AOSP version of Android, which means that it's secure. It has the latest, developments, has the latest security fixes by and large, but it just doesn't have access to the Play Store. But that's okay. You don't need the Play Store anymore, folks. You've got F-Droid, or you've got independent APKs that you can download that can do a lot of this stuff. Something I'm actually really excited about and I'm interested in seeing, I want to see FireFox OS. It's coming. I would be very intrigued in owning a phone that ran Firefox OS. And big shocker, this very open source secure system that Firefox is building as, for smartphones, not necessarily for tablets, but for smartphones, runs off of the very fact that the Firefox web browser itself, the mobile browser, is so secure and has extensibility, and that a lot of websites work very, very well. That a lot of mobile websites work just like apps do. So these are options that you can start taking advantage of right now. And it's all totally free. More or less free. I mean, some of this will cost, like disconnect.me services and whatever may cost you. But by and large, it's free. I mean, there's no barrier to entry other than getting the hardware. So, and I don't expect people to get away from their smartphones as much as I think that might be a pretty good idea. And certainly there's other things. I know that there's advantages to having that always on connection or whatever. And I think there's ways to still do that with a tablet. We talked about the mobile, hotspots. And other things. And something that's happening too, that we're seeing in a lot of cities in particular, is where they are just making, they're just opening up Wi-Fi and they're just running it everywhere. And so, that changes the game quite a bit. And when you are in an area that does not have Wi-Fi, well, pretty much everything we talked about in this special also has, very, built-in offline functionality, which I think is so important to have. So you can let me know what you think about this. If there's something, maybe people were wanting something more mainstream. But as I've said in the past, really, if it's not something that I see as really lending to a lot of freedom for people, I mean, fuck it, and all of these apps, really do. Open source is a real key in so many ways to getting real freedom in one's lives, in people's lives right now, right this second. Okay, so this is something that you can do. And I don't mean for it to sound, kind of crazy, but I figure let's start at the bottom floor and let's build up from there. Let's bottom floor being, holy shit, I'm on the run. That's the bottom floor with this, and how do I need a new identity. I don't want people tracking me. I can't be tracked, blah, 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 blah. And so that's what I tried to set up here, is that, and then, your comfort level can change moving upward. Okay. So I hope people enjoyed this. This is heavily requested. You can let me know if this was, if there's something else you were looking for, and, then I can update, and I can keep that in mind for when I do Dark Android 3, whenever that happens to be. Maybe that'll happen sooner than a year from now. So, but anyway, hope you enjoyed the show, and please feel free, if you do appreciate what gets laid out here. There are many donation options at sovryntech.com. You can donate lots of, there's cryptocurrency options available within the show notes of the show. My addresses are there for NXT, for Bitcoin, Namecoin, others. And also you can even donate via PayPal if you really need, if you want to, on the left-hand side of the SoundCloud page, which is what sovryntech.com at the moment is. There's a link to do that. So thank you all so much, of course, for continuing to be on this ride with me that is Sovryn Tech, because the show is growing and changing, all the time. And there's always new information to come out. And that's why sometimes these subjects like Dark Android require a good refreshing. And I'm happy to do it because, a lot of times, I mean, it's research I do for myself because, maybe it's something that would be necessary in the future, or just to, do best practices, worst case scenario, best practices, things of that nature. Always good to keep in mind, and to not be running so much on autopilot in our day-to-day activities. So anyway, carpe lucem, everybody. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.